Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I do want to take a couple of seconds to just simply absorb this. I mean, from what started as a very simple event, 50-people event on a very small, tiny rock in the Mediterranean, Malta, which is where we're coming from. Over the past couple of years, it's continued to evolve into a global movement of MedTech, health tech, life sciences, leaders, startups, companies, investors, service providers, and eventually it's what's making the true innovation within healthcare. I'm coming from a physician's background. I was working into surgery, studied at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and I've had some tough years working directly with patients. And unfortunately, as physicians, we barely had the time to be entrepreneurial. We're facing a lot of problems within our daily works, but we never could really invest our time and efforts to actually solve these problems. And that's essentially what you're doing, thanks to people and organizations like Paul's, MedTech Innovator, because you're essentially devoting your lives and your careers to coming up with different medical device, digital health solutions to eventually get deployed into healthcare. A special thanks also to our investors. It's not easy to deploy capital, especially when they're startups in the early stages. Some investments do well, others don't. And I think deep down, we're all in it purely for the sake of healthcare. And that's what I love about this industry. I do want to thank MedTech Innovator and Paul for giving us this opportunity to co-host this event together. When I set out to start organizing events in the US, everyone was telling me, speak to Paul, reach out to Paul, go on LinkedIn. I'm trying to slide into his DMs, no replies, no nothing. And eventually, fast forward a couple of years, we're here together sharing a stage, and this is genuinely, truly an honor for us, for me, for the rest of the team, and something that I even noticed over the past couple of days is even when it comes to my team, they felt so motivated working with MedTech Innovator, with Paul, definitely, and the rest of the team, that they started to realize more why we're into this. Some of my team haven't been working in healthcare or haven't studied healthcare. They just joined MedTech World, and eventually they were going to see where they're going to end. But they started to realize the fruit of their work, that we're actually in it to improve healthcare and to essentially create a difference. So I do wish to thank you, Paul, MedTech Innovator, yourselves for being here today, and I'm genuinely looking forward to a day full of connections, not just simply networking, but coming together, sharing the different challenges, and hopefully eventually finding your investments. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dylan. So, yeah, it's true. Yeah, he slid into my DMs, and we got in touch. No, Dylan has been a consistent supporter of MedTech Innovator for years. We just have never partnered. It's the first time we've partnered on an event together. But all of our events, almost everywhere we've been over the last 3 years or so, Dylan has been there. And he's created this really phenomenal ecosystem for companies, especially at his flagship MedTech Malta event. Who here has been to MedTech Malta? How many people? You're right, not that many hands. So what's amazing is when I would talk to our companies who did go to Malta, and they'd come back and I go, how was it? Because we're always curious, what's the event like? And it was overlapping with one of our events, so I wasn't able to go. They would come back and they'd say, it was incredible. And I'd go, oh, that's great, what was incredible? And they go, it was this really amazing environment that was much more intimate, and we got to really spend time with the investors, sometimes with people on the M&A side, where it might be, other startups. And they said it was just a great event, and I made these incredible connections, and sometimes they raised capital or whatever the deal was, but they all reported, there was no one who came back and said, not going back, it was a waste of my time. Everybody said, oh, it's delightful, it's amazing, you should go to Malta next year. And I kept going, I really want to go, I want to go. But again, it kept overlapping with other events that we were committed to. And Dylan said, hey, we have to create something together, and let's do something in the States. And this year, it just worked out for timing that, typically we partner with Wilson Sonsini and have an event after our summit. So for those of you who don't know, we had our summit this week. And at the end, typically we have an investor day with Wilson Sonsini. But this year, they moved that to the earlier part of June. And that created this window of opportunity where I reached out to Dylan and said, hey, if we want to do something together, now is the time. And they sprang into action. Yulia and all the other members of the team here put this event together, which I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm very excited about it, and as somebody who's been to a lot of conferences over the years, I mean tons of conferences, it's hard to get investors to come to conferences, especially if it's a new conference. And we've got over 140 investors who are registered for the conference today. So that's incredibly reaffirming that there's a lot of interest in what it is that you've built at MedTech World. And the MedTech Malta event, as I said before, I've never been there. Everyone I've talked to has said it's worthwhile, so literally there's only a couple hands in the audience. Every one of you should consider this upcoming MedTech Malta event. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and so I think it's absolutely worth going to. But they also have events I can't believe you have an event in Hong Kong in like 3 days. That's insane.
Neither can I.
And I mean, that unbelievable, right? And then they have other events also coming up, Dubai and Singapore. So highly recommend that you check out any of those events. But of course, most importantly, have a great event today. We have 100 or so of our startups from MedTech Innovator who are vetted out of literally thousands of companies that applied to be in the program this year. So if you're an investor, you're in for an incredible treat. These are the best startups in the entire world. These are literally globally sourced companies. If you're meeting with a MedTech Innovator company, if you see somebody with the MedTech Innovator pin on who is from one of our startups, these companies are literally the best companies on the planet in the medtech space, and it's an amazing opportunity to really be, whether it's the right time or if you're somebody who invests later, get to know these companies now, because you are going to want to make sure you're on their cap table at some point. So thank you again for partnering with us. I'm very excited for today, and
Thank you.
Good luck. Thanks all.